So in this video, I'm going to talk about how to speed up the deployment of a CRM system, which is something I get asked a lot. I think people are quite surprised how long a CRM project can take. So always looking at ways of making that quicker. So I'm going to walk through 10 ways to do that today. The first is a slightly odd one. It's what we call sort of truncating the fuzzy front end of a project. So the fuzzy front end is all the stuff that happens really from a project being a glimmer in somebody's eye, something we think we might want to do. Maybe we do need a new platform. Maybe we do need to put in a new system. Maybe we do need to change systems. It's that all the way through all the sort of work that goes alongside that in terms of maybe researching the marketplace and discussing things internally and preparing a business case before you sort of finally reach the conclusion this is something you want to go ahead with. And actually this part of a project can take years. So if you want to look at a CRM project holistically, then actually that fuzzy front end can be the part you can really cut back if you want to speed things up. And sometimes it's best, it's just something you can do with just rigorous analysis and sort of internal debate, but maybe getting in an external consultant like ourselves, it's not meant to be sort of promotional, but is a way of sort of cutting through that. So that's point one. Point two, perhaps no surprise from me, is really get a nice, tight, well-defined specification. Again, yes, functionality is important, listing that out, but the key thing is to set out what are the business processes that the system is going to support and how is it going to support them, and then to set that out in a way that internal stakeholders can read, agree and sign off, and then that avoids the project being delayed by scope creep as things that people hadn't thought about start coming into the mix as you start to roll out the system. And secondly, it's written in a way that the implementer can understand so that they can go off and build what you need rather than something completely different. So that spec, to me, is the foundation for any sort of project and certainly a foundation for a rapid deployment project. Thirdly, it's about sort of picking your shots, really. As I've touched on in previous videos, there's a bit of a Pareto effect. 20% of the functionality may give 80% of the benefits. So, a lot of projects benefit from being phased, focusing on the things that are going to really make a difference and getting those deployed, and really using phasing in order to get a system out there quickly. Fourthly, try and stay reasonably close to the out-of-the-box software. Yes, every system will need to be customized to some extent because every business, every organization's needs are unique. So there's always going to be some degree of tailoring. But if you're off doing lots of sort of custom coding around the outside of a system in order to do what you need it to do, really look into that. Is that absolutely needed? Have we actually chosen the right software? There might be software that already has that, it might be a better fit. Anytime you're looking at a lot of custom code, you're looking at additional development time and, more importantly, additional testing time further downstream. So really trying to focus on using the out-of-the-box capabilities rather than doing lots of custom development can make a real big difference. Fifthly, have a realistic project plan. Project plans are important, so it just gives everybody a target, everybody something to focus on. We understand what the timelines are. We're looking to understand when we need to be delivering. But that plan does need to be realistic because, if 2 weeks in, we've already missed the first milestone, everything starts to fall apart after that. But it's important to get that plan in place. If you're doing testing and you say you're going to get it done, your test cycle done in 2 weeks and it takes 4 weeks, don't be surprised when you finally go back to the vendor to do some rework that actually the resources aren't available anymore. They've been allocated to another project. You're going to have to wait for them to be freed up. So it's understanding an accurate understanding of what needs to be done when and what resources we're going to need is really, really important. 6, and a really important one, is about making resources available on your side, the client side, for the project. I think people are surprised on how time-consuming of internal resources CRM projects are. Now, a lot of people involved in the project have got day jobs as well, so we need to be mindful of that and try and free people up as much as possible to focus on the project. We also need to be aware that, to some degree, a lot of organisations, a lot of businesses have some degree of seasonality baked in. So there are particular times of the year where things are really, really busy and those key stakeholders we need for the project aren't necessarily going to be available. So just being really mindful of busy times and quieter times and sort of reorientating your project around that can be really important. But if you are going to have issues getting resources available for the project, then maybe you need to contract additional staff and resources in. Perhaps bring in an external project manager to run things on your side. The next point 7, is really around working with a high quality implementation partner. You probably pay more for it, but somebody that's experienced, capable, is going to implement a system considerably faster than somebody that's new or not necessarily massively competent. And I say this because in my experience there's a lot of not hugely competent implementers out there, and probably a relatively small cadre of good, capable system integrators. But if you want to implement a system fast, particularly if there's any degree of complexity involved, you need good implementation partners to work with. Point 8 is around, I guess, an element of the procurement piece. Now, procurement is often dictated, if you're a larger organisation, there may well be very set processes and procedures that you need to go through as part of procurement. There's not necessarily much you can do about that. But one bit that does seem to catch people by surprise is the contract side of things. So often in a CRM project there'll be contracts that need to be signed, and that piece of things, once you get into contract negotiation, that can really take a long time, particularly when the sort of legal people get stuck into it. So just be aware of that, and the earlier that you can begin that, the sooner that issue is addressed. It's not something you want to be leaving as the last activity before starting your project. Point 9, really key, is the quality of what's delivered into user acceptance testing. So any project where any project really, you're going to need to test it before you go live. Now, there is a massive difference between a well-tested product going to the user acceptance testing team and something that's been very lightly tested and has got lots of problems with it. So it's well tested, it might be a couple of test cycles and you're ready to go. If it's poorly tested, you could have multiple test cycles going over months, if not years in some cases, before you get to a position where you can go live with the system. So, this kind of goes hand in hand with having a good implementation partner, but it's also about setting expectations of people. You expect, and to say to your implementer, you expect them to do internal testing, comprehensive internal testing, before that system is delivered to you to do user acceptance testing. It should be, high quality and robust at that point. That makes a huge difference in terms of speed of implementation. And then point 10, and my final point, is that I'm not going to get into methodologies here, waterfall or agile or some hybrid of the two, but whatever approach you've got, it's very important to do early playbacks to users as you start to develop and deliver capability, because it's much easier to make a course change early if you haven't got something quite right than deliver everything and suddenly find you've missed the mark, and trying to change things later in a project, and that can be much more difficult, much more time consuming. So regular early playbacks, get feedback on what you're developing. Just the way that the kind of generation of CRM tools allow sort of rapid sort of prototyping, it's very important to use that just to sense check that you're on course, because it's easier to make an early course correction than one later on. Anyway, that's it for today. That's 10 ways to speed up your CRM project. Thank you.